ಲಾಗಿನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇದೆ ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ತಿಂಡಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಎಂತ ಮೊಸರನ್ನ ಕರ್ಡ್ ರೈಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಾಳೆಹಣ್ಣ ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತು ಯಾಕೆ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ So the chapter public finance and the next chapter money market. Both the chapters are related to an economy. Sir, what do you mean by an economy? How do we run an economy? When I say we as a government or as a government authority. Sir, what do you mean by how do we run it? Run ಮಾಡೋದಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Run English ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ okay day to day activities ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡು ಮತ್ತೆ how do we develop our country, how do we frame the policies, how do we maintain the defense, how do we maintain the police, how do we maintain the infrastructure, what should be the interest rate, how many aspects should be there. All these running of country matter related are dealt in two chapters. One is public finance, next one is money market. Sir, what is money market? In simple terms, anything with relation to the money, printing of the currency notes, deciding the interest rate, lending of loans, accepting the deposits, all those matters with respect to money is discussed in money market chapter. And the full and final authority with respect to that money matter is given to the RBI, Reserve Bank of India in India. And all the other matters other than money are discussed in this chapter. Maybe infrastructure, maybe defense, maybe taxation, maybe expenditure, maybe education, maybe health, anything other than money, other than banking related items are discussed in this chapter. And the authority is not with the RBI, authority is with the central government, as well as with respect to certain elements it is with the state governments, it is with the government to be precise. Sir, what do you mean by with the government? All the other matters other than the money, the decision is taken by government. RBI has no say in these things, and the government also does not say anything with respect to the monetary terms. When I say it does not say, it will not take any decisions. It can give the suggestion. Instead of 10%, you keep 5% interest rate. That is good for our country. Because both should go in hand. Adu bereyalla idu bereyalla eradu country related ide. It is just the delegation of authority. It is just the bifurcation of the authority. One is dealt by RBI, one is dealt by government. So this chapter number 7 is a big chapter. Out of these 5 chapters which I discussed, international trade, national income, public finance, monetary and Indian economy, this is the biggest chapter. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of quantity. Content is too much. Not technicality. Technicality is too much of content, vast content. There are 4 units. First one is fiscal function. Second one is market failure and corrections with respect to market failure. Third one is budget making process. Then fourth one is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. In case of next chapter, money market, there are 3 units, only 3 units. First one is money demand. Second one is money supply. Third one is monetary policy. Why do we demand the money? Who will supply the money? And what are the policies with respect to money? That is discussed in the next chapter. Here, fiscal functions, market failure and the corrections to of those market failures by the government, budget making process and fiscal policies. Remaining 3 units, not 3 units, unit number 2, market failure and corrections to market failure, as well as unit number 4, fiscal policy, is totally dependent on unit number 1. If you don't understand unit number 1, you won't understand this chapter. That simple it is. Sir, if I understand this unit, is it as good as I understood this chapter? Yes. 80% of the concepts are again being repeated. Under physical functions, we discuss certain elements. Out of those, this has been bifurcated into 3 things and discussed in 3 other separately units. It is like a summary chapter which contains, and remaining 3 units are one specific topic specialization. Is that okay? Unit number 1 is very important. Don't miss anything. If you get any doubt, do ask. Simple only. You have learned it in PUC also. Socialistic economy, market capitalistic economy, mixed economy, those things only there, but in the different terminologies. Coming back, unit number 1, fiscal functions. Before starting the unit, I would like to clarify 2 things. Here I use public, the word public. Public means government. Sometimes I use the word market. Market means what? Capitalistic economy, private people, private sector, the government. Whenever I use the word market, it is private. If I don't use the word market, public, it is governmental. Now, actually, a country can be divided into 3 types of systems. Either a country can be of socialistic country, where majority is run by governments, or a country can be capitalistic country, where there are less intervention of the government, where everything is left to the private people. And third one is mixed economy, where there is a coexistence of government as well as private people. Keeping in that mind, we will begin with this unit. It is purely of theory. It is like unit number 3 of chapter number 9. We have to read it and analyze it. So, physical functions. Unit number 1 is physical functions. It is an overview, and there is one additional topic which is recently introduced, that is central and state finance. We'll see it. So, the primary goal of a state, when I use the word state, it is not Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. When I say use the word state, it is government or country. State under Rajya Allah, state under Desha. The primary goal of the country or state is to promote the general welfare of the society. It can be asked for an examination, MCQ. What is the primary goal of a state or primary goal of a country? It is general welfare of the society. As well as we know, macroeconomic study is the study of an economy as a whole. What is microeconomics then? Study of things which are on individual basis, not on a whole basis. So there is one more MCQ which can be formed. There are 3 main macroeconomic goals for any nation. For every nation, there should be these 3 more main macroeconomic goals. What are those 3 goals? First one is economic growth. You underline whatever I underline, that's it. Economic growth. Second one is high level of employment. We call it as full employment. Third one is stable price levels. 3 macroeconomic goals. Example ಕೇಳ್ತಾರ. What are the main macroeconomic goals? A, B, C. ಈ 3 ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೆಳಗಡೆ all of the above ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. It is all of the above answer. 3 main macroeconomic goals. We are not talking about micro, we are talking about macro. You should remember that. Microeconomic goals are totally different. That is not there for your syllabus. You will discuss in, not there for my syllabus. You will discuss in the first 5 chapters. So, the first, you don't underline now, just listen. The first economic is economic growth. If the real GDP, what is real GDP? Real GDP. Real and nominal GDP. I have to discuss now. What is real GDP? And the constant prices are okay. It is the GDP without inflation. Nominal is with inflation, real is without inflation. Grows at a faster rate than the population. That means if the population every year is growing by 2%. What is the 2%? You are 100 crore population. Next to 102 crores next year. Then plus 2%. Plus 2% is grow up. If the GDP, real GDP, is growing at a faster rate than the growth in population, then there will be economic growth. It is like 100 ಜನ ಹುಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, 100 ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, then there is economic growth. 100 people are getting born every year, but we are producing only 98, then there is no economic growth. There is economic we call it as recession, economic recession. Growth ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, recession ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೌನ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಹೊಂಟ ಇದೆ. So examiner can ask this question also: when does the economic growth is set to happen? It is whenever the real GDP increases at a rate higher than the increase in population. Population ಯಾವ ರೇಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ increase ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ರೇಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ GDP increase ಆಗಬೇಕು, real GDP specifically, not nominal. Then people can enjoy higher standard of living. That's okay. The second goal is the high levels of employment, which will ensure higher income and higher output. You just remember high level of employment. And third macroeconomic goal is stable price level. What do you mean by stable price level? No, it is not without inflation. Inflation is there, but it is at a stable price. For example, every year 2% ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. One year it is not 20%, one year it is not 2% and 10%. So stable ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು constantly. That is what stable price levels. Three main macroeconomic goals. Economic growth, it is set to happen whenever the real GDP increases at a faster rate than the population. Second one is high level of employment, or they can use the word full employment. Full employment, you can write it as full employment also. Third one is stable price levels. And the concept of inflation reduces the real incomes and purchasing power of some people. What is this? See, this unit or this chapter is full about reading and explaining. It is not like Keynesian theory, he said, two sector model, three sector model, concept. There are few concepts which will explain, but this unit is so vast, question everything we have to read it, because of which it will go very slowly. It is like documentary movie ಇದ್ದಂಗ, you get very ಇನ್ನು ಯಾವಾಗ ಮುಗಿತೈತಿ ಮೂವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, but you have to see that movie. There is no other option, because that is there for your syllabus. What is this concept? Inflation reduces the real incomes and it will increase the purchasing power of some people and disproportionately affect the lower income families. What is this line? Tell me. Read and tell me. Inflation reduce ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, inflation will reduce something. ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಕತ್ತಾರ. Okay, what is inflation? First we have to understand that. Rise in the prices of commodities. Last year it is 100, this year it is 120. Can I say there is inflation of 20%? It is rise in the prices. That rise in the prices will reduce what? Real incomes, because earlier I had 500, I used to spend 100 rupees on this pen. Now I am still getting 500, but I am spending 20 rupees extra to get this pen, because of which my balance income is get reduced by 20 rupees. That reduced income, and it will reduce the purchasing power of some people. Why? I cannot use the 20 rupees for some other things, for the purpose purchase of something, and disproportionately affects the lower income families. What is disproportionately affect the lower income families? Disproportionately affects is negative word, lower income families. So what is this affect lower income families? How this inflation will affect the lower income families?
Because they won't be able to afford those products.
Yeah. See, their income is still the same, but the prices of commodities have keep on increasing, because of which they are unable to afford it. That is what this point. The inflation has two things. One, it will reduce the real income and it will affect the lower income families. Disproportionately means what? Not in the same proportion. Now the 5%, sorry, 5% price ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದ್ರೆ 5% purchasing power ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಬೇಕು. That is what disproportion. Then opposite is deflation. Deflation signals the downturn of economic activity. What do you mean by downturn of economic activity?
Fallen.
Yeah, country is not growing, country is coming down, which may cause a recession and large scale of unemployment. Why? What is the deflation? Reducing the reduction in the prices of commodities, inflation and deflation. Whenever there is a reduction in the prices of commodity, how does it will affect a recession as well as a large scale of unemployment?
So when the price of the product falls down,
Mhm.
the profit for the company also comes down. So
Okay.
they'll not be able to pay the proper salary what they have to pay to the employees.
Mhm.
So there'll be unemployment.
Okay, our first part of the answer is right. Because of the reduction in the prices of commodities, suppliers are not motivated to sell because their profit has come down. Whenever they don't want it to sell, they don't want to produce also. When they don't want to produce, they don't want to hire people also. Because of which large level of unemployment will exist in the economy. Inflation motivates the producers to produce, but it will demotivate the consumers to consume because they don't have so much of income. Deflation, exactly opposite. People want to buy it, but the goods and services are only not there. Then, because of these situations, the government does not expect the economy to function automatically. What is automatically? ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾದ inflation, ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾದ deflation, ಈಗ automatically function ಆಗೋದು ಬೇಡ country. We have to run that country. Because of which government will intervene into the market. So, what is the role of government in an economic system? We'll come to the first 3 points later. There is a person called Adam Smith. Who is Adam Smith? Father of economics, where he said he is also called as bold advocates of the free markets. Adam Smith is called as bold advocates of free market. What is this bold advocates of free market? He always suggested a country should be always in the private people hands. Bold advocates of the free markets. Market means private people should be left with free hands. Government should not try to intervene in every type of activity. It should be left free for the private people. He is boldly advocating it. And openly it should be run that way. The MCQ can be, who is the bold advocate of free markets? That is Adam Smith. Adam Smith is also called as dash bold advocates of free market. Here question frame where he has said the government should be having very minimal activity in a country. What is this very minimal activity in a country? There are certain type of activity where private people are not motivated to do it, where private people are not ready to do those type of activity. So what does they are not motivated? Wherever there is no profit, they don't want to do it because the main motive of the business is to earn the profit. For example, defense activity. For example, police activity. For example, drainage cleaning, sanitization, where there is profit there. In those type of activity, private people are not motivated to enter into those type of businesses or activity. In those activities only, the government only has to intervene. If not, the government should be have no intervention. Government should run the country. Business should be run by private people. That is what the bold advocates of free market, that is Adam Smith, is suggesting. He simply said there should be minimal government activity in the intervention. Uh, the government's roles in the society should be limited but well defined. What is well defined? Yes, you should intervene very less, but for what are the activities you are going to intervene, you should be defined it. Defense, police, sanitization, public works, public library, free health, free education. You have to define it. You cannot say this is also my work, this is also my work. You don't do this. You define it, well defined. Then, as per Adam Smith, the important resource allocation role in the government are mainly three activities a government has to intervene. One is for the purpose of protection of the country by using the national defense. Government should intervene only this activity. What is that activity? National defense. Second one is for the purpose of establishment of system of justice. What is establishment of system of justice? Court,
Judicial.
judiciary things. Third one is establishment of highly beneficial public institutions. What is highly beneficial public institutions? Whatever the things which benefits in a high maximum way to the public. Example, ಬ್ರಿಡ್ಜ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋರಿ ದಾಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಕ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಹೈಯರ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್. ರೋಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್, ಫ್ರೀ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್, ಆರ್ ರೋಡ್, ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ಲೈಟ್ಸ್, ಲ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಸ್, only those activities you have to involve. As per Adam Smith, where he said government has to involve in only 3 activities. National defense, why? For the purpose of protection of the nation from external violence and invasions. They are using the word external violence. Why not internal? Because internal thing is there with the police department, not with the defense department. Defense is to protect the borders, not within the country. Second one is system of justice. Third one is highly beneficial public institutions that has to establish. They'll ask again an MCQ here. As per Adam Smith, the government role or government has to intervene in the following activities: A, B, C, and D1 is all of the above: national defense, public works, and system of justice. Then again, one more person called as Richard Musgrave. Richard Musgrave has propounded a 3-branch taxonomy. What is the 3-branch taxonomy? The Adam Smith said you should do only 3 activities. What is the 3 activities? Defense, justice, and public institutions. But Richard Musgrave is not telling the type of activity. He is just dividing the country into 3 types of activity. Government should intervene only these 3 types of activity. What is the 3 types of activity? The rest of the chapter is, the rest of the unit is only those 3 types of activity, except state and central finance. Where he said, first activity is government has to intervene in resource allocation, redistribution function, as well as stabilization function. 3-branch taxonomy. What do you mean by branches? 3 elements. Taxonomy means system, types. So here there are 4-5 MCQs which can be asked. Who has propounded this 3-branch taxonomy? That is Richard Musgrave. And where he has propounded in a book called The Theory of Public Finance. The Theory of Public Finance. He has propounded that preface, where the role of a government in a market economy. That means you should leave the country into the private people and you should involve only in these 3 activities. Capitalistic economy ಒಳಗಡೆ government ಈ 3 activities ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Second MCQ. First one is 3-branch taxonomy is given by Richard Musgrave, given in Theory of Public Finance book. Third one is third and fourth is resource allocating function is related to microeconomic or macroeconomic. It is a microeconomic. Resource allocation as well as income redistribution is related to the microeconomic functions. What is macroeconomic? That is related to the stabilization function. Only stabilization is a macroeconomic function, and the resource allocation as well as income redistribution is microeconomic function. It can be asked for again MCQ. You do both. Or they can ask which is not the microeconomic function of an economic activity. Stabilization function. Anyway they can ask, but you should be in a position to answer it. Sir, what is resource allocation? Now we can discuss a little bit of concept. Listen. Resource allocation. ಓದಿರ ಯಾವಾಗಾದ್ರೂ PUC ಒಳಗಡೆ? Have you studied in the PUC? Allocation function, distribution function, stabilization function. ಇತ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲ ಸಿಲೆಬಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ? No. Science ಅಲ್ಲಿ definitely ಇಲ್ಲ. I am asking commerce students. That too who has taken economics. ಯಾವ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ನಿಮಗೆ PUC ಅಲ್ಲಿ? National income is done, international trade is also done. Then macroeconomics ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯಾವುದು? Money we will have in the next chapter. Open economy, that is international trade. Capitalistic economy, socialistic economy, ಯಾವ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆ? Okay, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಇದಿಲ್ಲ. What is this allocating function? If you leave, see what are we discussing first, you should be having clarity about it. The role of a government in the market economy. That means capitalistic economy ಒಳಗಡೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ರೂಲ್ ಎಷ್ಟಿರಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ 3 ರೂಲ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. Allocating function, redistribution function and stabilization function. What is allocating function? I'm talking from the market point of view. Market means capitalistic point of view. As a capitalistic person, as a capitalistic industry, I am not motivated to produce those type of goods and services where there is no profit, because that is not my objective. Any objective of a business is to make the profit. If there is no profit, the private people will not enter into those type of businesses. Because it will not enter into those type of businesses, the country will suffer from certain type of deprivations. Sir, what do you mean by country will suffer from deprivations? If the defense part, considering of defense is having no profit. If there is no profit, private people will not start the defense part. If they don't start the defense part, without having the defense, can we run a country? China, Pakistan, everybody is waiting to attack us. Because of that functions, the government has to enter into a function called as allocating function and try to allocate the resources. That is one way with respect to the country. With respect to the individual level, there are some public parks. Have you seen that? How much they will charge? Sometimes 10 rupees or sometimes free only. Morning ಯಾರು ವಾಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾರು ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ವಾಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅವರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಫ್ರೀ. ಯಾವಾಗ ಟೂರಿಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪಾಟಿಗೆ ಹುಡುಗ ಹೋಗ್ತಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ ದ afternoon time, maybe 10 to 4 5, they'll charge some 10-20 rupees. Government run parks only. Do you think those type of parks will private people open it? Sir, what do you mean by park? There are so many economics involved. Consider there is 5 acres of park. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಉಡುಪಿ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಕನ್ಸಿಡರಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಇನ್ 1 acre. Private people will think we will establish one commercial complex, we will make some part of the complexes and we will rent it. We can generate some 10 crore rupees of profit in 1 year. But if you keep on generating, if you keep on constructing, what about the country's old age of people who are suffering from some diseases, or people who want some good air, oxygen? Where they have to go? They can't consume all the pollutions, because of which we need some parts. Again, bridges, dams, all these works cannot be done by private people. If we leave all the country to the private people hands, these works will not be happening. If they don't happen, what about the country's population? We cannot just run behind the profit. We have to see even the welfare of the people also along with the profit part. If there is no welfare, there is no profit. Nan kade rokka illa oil purchase ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Because of which, under allocating function, capitalistic economy will try to always misallocate the resources. What do you mean by misallocate the resources? The capitalistic economy will not produce the required goods and services for the public in general. General public again make a lot of goods produce mangali. Wherever there is profit, they will try to produce only those type of goods and services. Or they will produce certain goods and services but at a reduced quantity. Why? Because they want to maintain that market power, monopoly. They want to create the artificial demand. They want to create the artificial market for them. To avoid this, government has to intervene. It has to buy some land, construct some park. It has to buy some again land, construct some free education, schools, again hospitals. That is what allocation function. If the country is left to the private people, they will not run country for the welfare of the people. For the purpose of the welfare of the people, the government has to intervene using the allocating function. This is one thing. Second one is redistribution function. Is if the government does not intervene, or if the country is left to the private people hands, the richer will become the richer, the poorer will become the poor. For example, Mukesh Ambani keeps on growing because he has so much of capital, because he has so much of talent, everything. But there are certain category of country, that is more than 50%, who are having no skills, who are having no education, illiterate people living in the rural areas where the agriculture is also not yielding. Because of which there are so many suicides are also happening. There is no proper income also. If I take my example in my family also, so for not now we are actually we are from the farmer background. Now I suggested to my father, don't do any agriculture, because not even I'm not talking about the profit. It is not even recurring the cost also. ಹೆಂಗಾಗುತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ we grow the good crops, but ಕಟಾವ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಟೈಮ್ ಫುಲ್ ಮಳೆ ಬಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಾಳಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Or it will be so much of drought that there is no water only for the purpose of growth. So why we have to incur the losses? See, I have no problem to incur the losses. I can bear the losses, but it will reduce my father's confidence. ಈಗ ನಾನ್ ಬೆಳೆಸಿದ್ದ ಬೆಳೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಒಳಗೊಳಗನೆ ಬಹಳ ದುಃಖ ಇರ್ತದೆ. So because of which, okay, you want to do something in agriculture, we will do some dairy farming. We have now, I suggested them for towards dairy farming, not agriculture. We have leased our full lands for somebody, they are doing it, and we are doing the dairy farming. So because of, okay, why did I come here? Redistribution function. If the country's economy is left to private people hands, they'll only try to always have, okay, consider this is the private academy. I am not a CA, example. I am not even an educated person. Just I come here, I want, if I ask them, I want to teach. Do you think they will give the job for me? Definitely not. You people will not accept me. ನೀನೇ ಸಿ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಸಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಟೀಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. So if it is left to the private people, they always see the efficiency. ಅವ್ರು ಜಾಬ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಮೈ ಲೈಫ್, ಮೂರು ಊಟ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ನಾನು? Private community, private economy, capitalistic economy is always based on, you have the capacity, you be here. If not, please get out. Government angle, look at the government officers. Whether they go around say 11 o'clock, they take 2 hours of lunch break, again they take 1 hour of tea break, then again come back to the home. Sir, are you talking about the work? Yes, they do the work in the breaks. They generally full on the break only. Full day break ನೇ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾವಾಗಾದ್ರೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆ ಬ್ರೇಕಿಗೆ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕರೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. That means government is not concerned with whether you are efficient, whether you are giving the output, whether you are achieving the targets. No, we want to give the benefit to the people. That is why government will intervene. First one is allocation function. Second one is redistribution function. Like collecting from the people who have and redistributing it to the people who does not have it. ಯಾರ ಕಡೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಯಾರ ಕಡೆ ಇಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹಂಚಿ. Sir, how do they do it? There are so many ways to do it. One of the ways to taxation. Higher the income, you pay the taxes. I collect the taxes. I tax collect ಮಾಡಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ ನಾನು? I'll give free subsidies. I'll give free 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. I'll give free buses for the ladies. Again, I'll give some pension for the old age people. Because they felt it is welfare of the people. Subsidies for the agriculture people. Private people will not do all these things. Public sponsors ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಕಾಲರ್ಶಿಪ್. Okay, ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. See, okay, what I understood. Those who are actually interested in doing, I know one because my friends has gone to this UPSC, who are really talented but suffering from the financial background. Then government of Karnataka sponsors them for the purpose of 1 year of training, 1 year of accommodation, food, hostel, everything. That is run by state government of Karnataka. Adu ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಕತ್ತೀನಿ. Some people supported in terms of academics, some people supported in terms of sports. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದೊಳಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. That is what we are telling. Private people also will do it, provided if they have some indirect advantage for them, indirect benefit for them. For example, sponsorship. IPL team t-shirt ಮೇಲೆ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಅವರು ರೊಕ್ಕ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? Because they felt their company can be get advertised from that. That is why they do it. If it is not, it is they'll not do it. Coming back, allocation function. Second one is redistribution, where government try to redistribute the disparity. What is disparity? The gap between the richer and poor. The government want to reduce it by way of collecting it from the haves and distributing it to the have-nots. ಯಾರ ಕಡೆ ಇದೆ ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಯಾರ ಕಡೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. It is not that I collect 10 lakh crore rupees, I distribute 10 lakh crore rupees. ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. For the welfare of the people, whatever is required, we will try to do it. We might establish one more bridge. We might lay some 100 kilometers of road, or we may establish some 10 schools or hospitals, free ration, free education, anything which is required. Or some people want to start the business, we will give the subsidized rate for the purpose of land, or maybe for the purpose of machinery. Or farmers are there, they want to grow, agriculture is not happening correctly, then we will give some subsidies with respect to this thing, buying of some motor, pump set, warehouse. Or we will give some assurance with respect to MSP, minimum support price. Market ಒಳಗಡೆ ಅವರು ಬರೀ 1000 rupees ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಿಂಟಲ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಕತ್ತಾರೆ, but government we will take 1500 rupees per quintal, because I know that is what you have incurred, at least ಅಷ್ಟಾದ್ರೂ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಕವರಿ ಆಗಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. So it is like redistribution, collecting it from the house and distributing it to the have-nots. That is what redistribution. Sir, after doing allocation function also, after doing redistribution function also, if the country is not in track, then government will try to enter into market using the concept called as stabilization function. What is stabilize? If the country is so much of fluctuating, then ಅದು stabilize ಮಾಡಕ್ try ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. How? There are so many other ways also. Is that okay? Allocation function, redistribution function, and stabilization function. We will see everything in detail. You can see there. I know it is pure theory. You have to bear with this. At least unit. You mark this macroeconomics, microeconomics. What? First one is allocation function. Second one is redistribution function. Third one is stabilization function. What is allocation function? And there is one more thing which I want to highlight now. You already know it. The wants of the people are totally unlimited. There is no limit for our wants. None gain make. For example, I said I want 1 crore rupees. The moment I get 1 crore, I aim for 10 crore. The moment I get 10, I aim for 100. The moment I get 100, I aim for 1000. That means the wants of the people are unlimited. I want to ನನ್ನ ಕಡೆ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಾಗ ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ನನ್ನ ಕಡೆ ಒಂದು ಬಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಅಡ್ಡಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದುಡ್ಡಾದ್ರೆ ಇರಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. The moment I have that, I wish I could have some money for buying some bike. Bike or car ಅಂದ್ರೆ car ಅಂದ್ರೆ then it keeps on going. There is no end for our wants. And the limit resources available to fulfill those wants are limited in nature. The wants are unlimited. The needs are resources are limited in nature. So how do we manage that? That is what they're trying to do it by way of allocation function, allocating to those commodities which are important for the living and trying to avoid the resources allocation for unnecessary things. Why do we need Mercedes Benz car? We don't need it. But do we need really two-wheelers? Yes, we need it. We will try to allocate the money for that rather than this allocation function. What we have to do it. You can see there. Resource allocation refers to the way in which the available resources or factors of production are allocated among the various users to which they might be put. It determines how much of the various kinds of goods and services will actually be produced in an economy. ಯಾವ type of commodity ಎಷ್ಟು production ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? Do we need to produce Mercedes? Do we need to produce bikes? For our country it is bikes. For USA it may be Mercedes. Then resource allocation is a critical problem because the resource of a society are limited in supply, whereas the wants of the members of a society are unlimited in nature. In addition, any given resources can have many alternative uses. What is this line? It can be asked for MCQ. Any given resources can have many alternative uses. Can you give any example which has alternative uses? Any resources which has alternative. Take it as a money. Money is also one of the resources. Money has many alternative uses. What is the alternative use? You can use it for coaching. You can use it for going for movie. You can have it on that. You can have the food with that. You can buy some, purchase some goods and services or bikes. Anything you can do because it is having multiple uses. You want to fulfill all the users using that money, but the money is limited in nature. If I say you have some X thing for which you can use only for this purposes, that means there will be no scarcity, there will be no abundance. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ ಒಂದೇ resources and you can use that resource only for one use. ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೂ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. For example, if I give a voucher, ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು voucher ಕೊಟ್ಟು you can redeem this voucher only in Success Edge Academy. That means that voucher does not have any multiple uses. I can use only for this purpose. In that case, there will be no mismatch between the wants and the needs. Wants and the availability of resources. Voucher ಐತೆ, I can go and redeem it. Sir, ನಂಗೆ ಬೈಕ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದೈತೆ, ನಂಗೆ ಕಾರು ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದೈತೆ. Yes, you can take, but this voucher has no use for that. If this voucher has multiple uses, then you feel I want that also, idu ಬೇಕು, because of which the scarcity problems arises. Then Economic efficiency indicates a situation in which all the resources are allocated to serve each person in the best possible way and minimizing the waste and inefficiency. There can be an MCQ in this point. What is this? Putting all the resources to the best possible way for the purpose of reduction of the waste as well as inefficiency is called as what? It is economic efficiency. What is economic efficiency? Using it in the best possible way. ಏನು waste ಆಗಕತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. For example, I employed a person. I said you have to work under me for 8 hours. What is efficiency? Taking the maximum possible work. 10 to 1 ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡು, 1 to 2 lunch break ತಗೋ, 2 to 3, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 2 to 6. Taking so much of efficiency. That is what? Economic efficiency. ನಾವು ಕೊಡೋ ದುಡ್ಡಿಗೆ ವರ್ತ್ ಇದೆ. What is inefficiency? Is always using the mobile. 1 ತಾಸು ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋದ್ರೆ 2 ತಾಸು ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋದ್ರೆ. So that is what inefficiency. We try to reduce that. If we reduce that, we call it as economic efficiency. Then a market economy is subjected to serious malfunctioning of several basic aspects. What is malfunctioning? Not doing properly. While the private goods will be sufficiently provided by the market, there is one word called as private good. What is private good? We will discuss it later. Those type of private goods will be sufficiently provided by the market. MCQ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. What type of commodities are sufficiently provided by the market? That is private goods. Public goods and merit goods will not be produced in sufficient quantity by the market. What do you mean by will not be sufficiently produced by the market? Market is a capitalistic economy. So capitalistic people can always try to produce maximum amount of private goods rather than public and merit goods. For which we have to understand what is private, what is public, and what is merit good. I'll just discuss what is private and public, then we will discuss the same concept again in the next unit also. Private good is a good. To enjoy those type of goods, you have to pay something. That is what private good. For example, you want to use one mobile, for which you have to pay the price. Without paying the price, you cannot use the mobile. Sir, I can go to Reliance and I can use the demo piece. I think so. If you want to use it for a longer time, you have to pay the price. Then only you can enjoy it. Because there are two words. One is rivalrous. One is excludability. Don't worry about these words. I'll just use this word. I'll explain it later. Rivalrous and excludability. What is excludability means? If you are not ready to pay the price for a commodity, you can be excluded from consuming that commodity. ನೀನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ I can make you not use that commodity. For example, if you are not ready to pay the fees of this class, I can make you get out of the class. That is what excludability. I can exclude you from consuming that commodity. Why? Because it is a private commodity. It is not available free for general public in general. ಯಾರು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗಷ್ಟೇ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಇದೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. But that is not with respect to public park. Public park you cannot exclude. ನೀನ್ ಗಿಡ್ಡದೆ ನೀ ಹೈಟ್ ಅದೇ ನೀ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. No, you cannot exclude because it is available for the public in general. That is what one type of commodity is public good, where it is available for public in general. The public good is non-rivalrous and non-excludable in nature. Just because you don't like him, you cannot make him not consuming that type of commodity. That is what public good. If it whether it pays, whether it does not pay, that doesn't matter. Rivalrous is what? I'll discuss it later. Don't get confused. Excludability ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೈತಿ. I'll discuss again in private and public. So because we are charging some price, it has a profit. Because it has a profit, capitalistic people will produce in a sufficient quantity. But with respect to public goods and merit goods, there is no profit. When there is no profit, capitalistic will not produce at the optimum quantity, because of which the market fails. Market means capitalistic people will fail to produce those type of commodities. Those type of markets are called as missing market. What is missing market? Non-existence of those commodities. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ private people, public parks, public schools, public hospitals ಇಂಥವೇನು ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. That is what missing market. Or non-existence of the markets occurs in a variety of situations. This is very important. Private good are rivalrous and excludable in nature. Public good are non-rivalrous and non-excludable in nature. What is rivalrous? Rivalrous is like, because I am consuming something, you are not able to consume the same thing in a same proportion. That is rivalrous. Rivalrous ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾ ಏನು ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಸೇಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಯುಟಿಲಿಟಿ, ಸೇಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಯು cannot get it. For example, there is Wi-Fi. There is Wi-Fi. It is private good only. If you don't pay the monthly charges, you are not allowed to do this. But the Wi-Fi limit is maximum 50 people. The person who gets connected for the first will get the speeder limit, ball speed is with Wi-Fi. But the person who connects at the end, maybe 40, 41, 42, their level of internet is very slow. Even it happens in case of normal mobiles also. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಸಲ network ಬರಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ there are too many users in that area. There is too much of data network trafficking in that area. That is why we call it as rivalrous. What is non-rivalrous? For example, street light. Street light is a public good. Just because I am consuming that street light, ನಾನು street light ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಓದ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಿನಗೆ ಬರಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಗುಡ್, it can be enjoyed by everybody in common. And just because I am sitting first behind that street light, ನೀನು ನಾನು ಬಾಜು ಬಂದು ಕುಂತ ನೀನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಲೈಟ್ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ, ನಿಂಗೂ ಸೇಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. That is what non-rivalrous. Rivalrous means where the utility will get reduced to the further persons, or efficiency will get reduced. But non-rivalrous means because you are consuming something, it is not that the other person is getting the reduced utility, he is also getting the same amount of utility. What is excludability? That is with respect to the price. Sir, ನಾನು price pay ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇದೀನಿ, whether I get the same utility, whether I don't get the same utility, that depends. Is that okay? There are some private goods which are excludable but non-rivalrous in nature. Think, excludable but non-rivalrous in nature. What is excludability? If you are not ready to pay the price, then you are not allowed to enjoy that commodity. But if you just pay the price, then you will not be getting the reduced utility of that. For example, cinema theater. Just because I am watching cinema, it does not mean you are getting some reduced visuals or reduced sound or reduced sitting things. But the only thing is excludability. If you don't pay the ticket price, you are not allowed to enter. But once you enter it, all the people who are sitting in that cinema hall will get the same effect. That is the excludability but non-rivalrous in nature. Okay, I am trying to explain the unit number 2 concepts. We will discuss it later. Simple terms: private good and public good. Private goods has profit, because of which capitalistic economy market will produce in a sufficient quantity. Public goods does not have the profit. Merit goods does not have so much of profit, because of which it will not be produced by market people. You remember only this part. And you can write if need private good. You can write it as excludable and rivalrous in nature. Excludability and rivalrous. Public good ig ಬರ್ಕೋರಿ, non-excludable full ಬರ್ಕೋರಿ, half ಬರ್ಕೋಬೇಡಿ, and non-rivalrous. Non-excludability and non-rivalrous. Then, what is efficiency? Taking the maximum possible benefit out of it. So, what is allocative efficiency? Allocation ಒಳಗಡೆ efficient. That means without wasting any resources, we will allocate it to the required places. Allocative efficiency is concerned with utilizing the limited resources to the produce goods and services, but that would maximize the value to the society, not the minimum but the maximized value. This can be asked for again MCQ. Allocative efficiency is related to utilizing the limited resources in the best possible way. Then, efficient allocation of available resources in an economy is assumed to take place only when the markets are perfectly competitive. What do you mean by perfectly competitive? Have you heard about this word, perfectly competitive? Monopoly, imperfect competition. What is perfectly competitive market?
Number of players are equal to number of sellers.
That is not the only case. That is not the primary factor to decide whether it is perfectly competitive or not. No.
When the demand, supply, and the
No.
when every company has an equal chance.
No. See, ಎಲ್ಲ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್, but that is not the primary thing of perfectly competitive thing. Under perfectly competitive market, goods are available, demand, supply, everything is okay, but the buyers and the sellers has the same amount of information. For example, if I say this pen, ಇದ್ರದ್ದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಇದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಡಿಸ್ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಇದೆ, ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಗೊತ್ತೈತಲ್ಲ, ಬೈಯರ್ಗೂ ಸೇಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಗೊತ್ತೈತೆ. And there are equal number of sellers compared to the equal number of buyers. Everybody having the same information with respect to goods and services. So when this efficient allocation happens is when the available resources in an economy is assumed to take place only when the markets are perfectly competitive. If not, the seller will try to exploit the buyer. Sir, idar istu advantage ide, istu benefit ide tagoli, but tagondmele avanga use agangilla. If he is also having the same amount of information, then they can utilize the efficient allocation of resources. For example, I also do become bakra for so many times. These things. Whenever there is some offer, either ninne sales start ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ninne night. So my brothers and my friends are telling, ಇದು ಚಲೋ ಇತ್ತು, ಈ ಶೂ ಚಲೋ ಐತೆ, ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಚಲೋ ಐತೆ ಇದು. But actually there is of no use. So I am not efficiently allocating my resources of money for the goods and services. When I don't have the perfect information. What do I mean by perfect information? If I know what are the things I need, what are the things I don't need, then I will take the rational decision. It happens only in case of perfectly competitive market. Here it is not perfectly competitive market. And the economic agents make rational choices and decisions when it is under perfectly competitive and efficient allocation. In reality, it will not happen. Markets are never perfectly competitive. Market failure when the market failure which hinders efficient allocation of resources occurs mainly due to the following reasons. Why it happens? Because of the following reasons. Why market fails? Market fails means what? Market means private people, capitalistic economy. Why it will fail? That is what we are trying to discuss. Why private people, private economy or capitalistic economy will succeed? Because any goods which has a profit, they are motivated to produce it. If there are no motivation to produce that commodity, then the market fails. Market fail means market is not motivated to produce those type of goods and services. That is what market failure. Market failure mainly occurs in merit goods and public goods. That means private people will not produce public parks, public street lights, public roads. But in case of private good, market will not fail because anyway they can charge the price and they can enjoy the profit. So this market failure occurs because of mainly three reasons. There are so many reasons, but mainly three reasons. What is that first reason? Imperfect competition. What is imperfect competition? Buyer and seller does not have the same amount of information. Are more number of sellers compared to the more number of buyers? Are more number of buyers compared to the more number of sellers? That is what imperfect competition. That will lead to what? Presence of monopoly power. What do you mean by monopoly power? The power with respect to production and supply of certain goods and services are controlled by few people or a single person. If some single person is controlling it, he has so much of power to decide what price to charge and how much output to be produced. He has two options. Sir, what do you mean by what price to be charged? There is no competition. If tomorrow Airtel is closed, if Jio says, if you want the data, you have to pay 5,000 rupees for 1 month. Now we are paying 900 rupees for 3 months. You have to pay 5,000 rupees for 1 month for unlimited data and unlimited calls. Will we pay or not? We have no other option. ಈಗ ಯಾಕೆ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ? ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ if they charge today, we will shift immediately to the Airtel. If Airtel charges, we will shift it to the Jio or Vodafone Idea because there is competition. When there is no competition, that situation is called as market power. The market power is called as monopoly. If it is monopoly, you can charge the more amount of price or you can restrict the output. For example, 100 demand ಇದೆ ಬರ 50 ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, because he wanted to maintain the demand for a longer period of time. Artificial demand. Either under production or higher prices. They can ask in the examination. What are the effect of monopoly power? It is under production. A option. B option is higher production. C option is A and B. D option is none of them. It is A and B. Under monopoly, there are mainly these two things: higher prices charging as well as lower output, reducing the output. And market may fail to control the abuse of monopoly power. Why? See, for example, somebody is charging 1,000 rupees instead of 500 rupees. 500 rupees extra charge ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಾನಂದ್ರ private people does not have the power to tell them why you are charging 1,000. You have to charge 500. They don't have the power. Why? Because they don't want to do it only. Their purpose is to making the good profit and the welfare of the people. So, second one is because of the presence of collective public goods. Public goods. Because of the presence of public goods, the market fails. What is public good? Such as defense. Defense is one of the public good. Even police also, even sanitization also. Which are by their very nature consumed in common by every people. See, if I am in India, I am as good as consuming the service of defense. Whether I am in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, it doesn't matter. Defense is applicable for everybody in India. Then there is something called as incomplete markets. What is incomplete market? It is market fails to produce the right quantity of merit goods, such as education and healthcare. Then common property resources, for example, public parks, environment, those things, it is overused and exhausted by individual in pursuit of self-interest. For example, there are some trees. ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಕಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಂತೇಳಿ ಗಿಡ ಕಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೊಂಟಾರ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ನ ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೈತೆ, ಅವ್ನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಮಾಡೋದೈತಿ. That is why, because of this over exploitation, over usage of things, the market is again failing. ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸಾಲ ಕಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. Then there is something called as externalities. Have you heard about the term externality? What is externality?
Positive and negative impact on the environment.
Okay, what have you learned with respect to externality? ನೀವು ಪಿಯುಷ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇತ್ತ ಏನ್ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ? What is externality then?
Sir, any company which does the same work that would be impacted on the environment or the economy positively as well as negatively.
You are telling an example. What is externality?
It's a cost or benefit which is non-monetary, which is not charged.
No. Which is not charged is okay, but it is monetary. Yes. Okay. It is like okay. You are trying to giving like features of externality. Externality in simple terms, an activity of one person is either benefiting the other party or it is leading the cost to the other party. For example, production by the factory is leading to the environmental destruction, because of which, because pollution emit ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ, that pollution wastage of water will get into the river. Nearby village people consuming that water is being affected. Do they have anything with respect to the production? No, somebody is producing it, the effect is being consumed by the third party. Or Sanjay is there. Sanjay has one crush. So ಅವ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ಕೊಳಕತ್ತಾನ, ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಆಗತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. But his crush not getting married to somebody, ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, it is she is his crush. ಅವ ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ. He wanted to tell after the CA, ನಾನು CA ಸೆಟ್ಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೀನಿ, ಇಷ್ಟು ಲಕ್ಷ ದುಡಿತೀನಿ, ಸೊ ಒಪ್ಪುತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಅಷ್ಟೊಳಗ somebody has ಯಾರೋ ಪಟಾಯಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮದುವೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ. See, the marriage of his crush is affecting the Sanjay. Is he has any interest in that? ಮದುವೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಏನೋ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಐತೆ? ಇಲ್ಲ. She is getting married, she is also happy, her husband is also happy, everybody is happy. But who is suffering here? Sanjay. So that is what we call as externality. It is external to the people. ಯಾರು ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಾರ, ಯಾರು ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರದಿಂದ ಹೊರಗಡೆವರಿಗೆ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, Namesh is there. He's a chain smoker. So he and Samar going to home. So Namesh ಹೇಳ್ದ ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಕೆಲಸ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಬ್ಬೆ ಅಂಗಡಿ ಕಡೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. Then he was smoking. Then the Samar who is standing beside him, he is also getting the smoke. That means I know Samarth is very happy. ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡಲಾರ್ದಂಗೆ ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಸೇದಕತ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. But his health is also being affected. That is what it is called as externality. Activity of one party is costing the other party. I am talking about the negative terms. What is positive? That is negatively affecting the health. Without money is, first of all, cigarette is a negative thing only. Okay. Benefit means where both the people are happy. Okay, sir, ಅವನು ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಕುಡಿದು ಅವನು ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಇವನು ಕುಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಟೈಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಒಂದು ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಇಟ್? No, that is like an employment where we work, we get the salary. That is in return. Okay, partially right. Then positive. Okay. Okay. Then any example here? Example positive externality. Please ಒಳಗಡೆ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಬರೀ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ತೀವಿ. Okay. Positive externality is where in that?
Sir, this institution making students literate.
But you are paying the fees.
Sir, one student asking the doubt, then whole class will
That is not positive externality. An activity of one student is being benefited to all the other students. See, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಕುಂತಾರ, ಇವನ್ ಡೌಟ್ ಕೇಳಕತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಇವನ್ ಡೌಟ್ ಕೇಳಕತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತೈತೆ. Activity of one party is causing benefit to other parties. Positive externality. One more type of positive externality is there is something called as CSR, corporate social responsibility. Whenever the company is having some amount of profit, it has to spend at least 2% of that profit for the society in general. Compulsory ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು. ಕಂಪನಿ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆ. Where ಕಂಪನಿ ಯಾವುದೋ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡೈತೆ, ಕಂಪನಿ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೈತೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ವಿಲೇಜ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, how do they spend it? Either they will adopt one village for the purpose of development of it, or they construct some schools freely, or they construct some hospitals, lay the roads, etc. Water tank, anything can happen. And when it comes to externality, in general, again I am consolidating, an act of one party, either it is benefiting the other party or it is causing the cost to the other party. If an activity of one party is costing to other party, we call it as a negative externality. If an activity of one party is causing some benefit to the third party, it is called as positive externality. Again, that positive externality and negative externality is again subclassified. We will discuss in unit number 2. 8 types of externalities are there. 8 types. Positive production, positive consumption, negative production, negative consumption. Positive production received in production, positive production received in consumption. There is so much of 8 types of externalities. We will discuss in the next unit. But you just remember externality. Because of this externality, the market will fail. What is this market will fail? For example, the ITC company. You know what is ITC company? Indian Tobacco Company has produced the cigarettes. Whenever they produce the cigarettes and sold it, consider they charged 20 rupees for one cigarette. Maybe 20 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು, ಕಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್. What is the rate of small cigarette? Small king, crystal. Nam kaka, before 5 years only it is available at 12 rupees. Nobody. Price of a cigarette. One piece. A small other idella. Gold flake small. Okay, we will consider as 20 rupees. King at 20 rupees. Whenever the ITC is charging 20 rupees, you will leave about this monetary part other way. Coming to the other part. They sold the cigarette, somebody consumed it, because of which his lungs got damaged. And he is a poor person or rich person. When the lungs got damaged, he has to go to the hospital. When he goes to the hospital, he has to repair another, get treatment for that liver. Repair, that is what we have to do. Very bare word. So ಅದನ್ನ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಖರ್ಚಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ 5 lakh rupees ಖರ್ಚಾಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Now that 5 lakh rupees cost has incurred for what purpose? Because my liver got damaged. Why did my liver got damaged? Because I was smoking. How much price did they charge for that smoking? 20 rupees. King size is 20 rupees. Did they charge the cost of liver treatment even in that price of this thing? That is what we call as externality. Production of cigarette by them is costing some extra additional cost for the third party. That is what externality. If it is doing positively, we call it as positive externality. Externality means activity of one party, either it is benefiting or it is costing some third party. So because of that, market fails. Market fails what? Market fails to collect that 5 lakh rupees. If they have sold that cigarette for 5 lakh rupees and 5 lakh and 20 rupees, then whenever this happens, the cost could have been borne by that IPC company. If not, now if consider the treatment needs 5 lakh, but I don't have the money, where do I go? Government hospital. ಅವ್ರು ರೊಕ್ಕ ತಗೊಂಬಂದೆ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ವೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ 5 lakh rupees ಕಮಿಂಗ್? ಅಗೇನ್ ಯಾರೋ ಚಂದಂಗ ಲೀಗಲಿ ಅರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ತಂದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್ಗೆ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು, ಫ್ರೀ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೈ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. So externality which arises when the production and consumption of a good or service affect the third party. Example, they have given it as pollution. Video stop ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ? He wanted to give some gift. I said no, don't give them. Then one of the other factor for market failure is factor immobility, which causes unemployment inefficiency. What is factor immobility? No, he wanted to make some announcement. He is from ICA Institute. Maybe some conference or seminar is there. Barri ante ಹೇಳಕ್ ಬಂದಿರಬೇಕು. Then he went back again. That's okay. We were discussing market failure. Why does the market fail happens? Because of the following reasons. One of the reasons which we are discussing is factor immobility. Sir, okay. What is market failure? You tell me. What? Let me know what you have understood by market failure. Market failure on rain of lightning. Where private sector failed to provide required goods and services to the people. That is what market. Market means private sector, capitalistic economy. Government intervention illa. Market and the private people fail agade. Why they are failing to provide goods and services? Because of factor immobility. What is factor immobility? What is immobility? It is not moving from one place to another place. What is factor? There are 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. Don't worry about the land, labor, land, capital, and entrepreneur. Leave about that. Consider it as labor. Now, example. Now, I am a labor. For example, I am unemployed. Now I want some work. If I get the work, I can earn some money so that I can feed my stomach and my family also. But there are no employment opportunities in Bangalore. There is one employment opportunity in Mumbai, but As a person, I don't want to leave the Bangalore. When I don't want to leave the Bangalore, I cannot go to the Mumbai. When I can't go to the Mumbai, I can't work. If I don't work, I won't get the salary. If I won't get the salary, again me and my family suffering. Some free ration ಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತೆ ಬದುಕಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ free ration ಮೇಲೆ ಮತ್ತೆ free bus ಬೇಕು ಈಗ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾರ. So factor immobility which causes unemployment that will lead to an inefficiency. If I had moved from Bangalore to Mumbai, then everything could have been sorted out. Because I am not moving from one place to other place, private people are not ready to give the money for free of cost. ನೀನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದಷ್ಟು ಸಂಬಳ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಇಲ್ಲಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು? That is why market is failing. Market is failing to provide the money, goods and services for free of cost. Why? I am not ready to work, they are not ready to pay. That is fair enough. But ಬದುಕೋದು ಹೆಂಗೆ? That is where the market failure occurs. Then imperfect information, same as perfect competitive market, where the seller is having more information or buyer is having the more information, where somebody is trying to take the undue advantage of the other party. Incomplete information. For example, I wanted to buy a second hand bike. I went to some second hand bike dealer. He said, sir, best bike ಇದೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಏನೂ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ 5 ವರ್ಷ ಮಸ್ತ್ ಬರ್ದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. I bought it. After 1 month it got breakdown. Again after 1 month again it got breakdown. After 1 month again it got breakdown. Then I fed up and I so ಯಾರು ತಗೊಳಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ breakdown ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರು ತಗೋತಾರೆ? I kept it side only. I bought that second hand bike for 50,000. Now if I had the complete information, ಅದನ್ನ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇಂಜಿನ್ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಲೈಟ್ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಆಯಿಲ್ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, I would have easily verified that. Because of the incomplete information, the market is failing. Again, I am not able to determine what is the right price for the goods and services. That is what incomplete information. Then inequalities we will discuss after the break. We will take a break, then we will discuss. Gathered ಆಯ್ತು
ಸರ್ ಅದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ
ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ
ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಓಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ 100% ನಾನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. So we were discussing market failure in case of allocating function. The market fails to allocate those goods and services which are required for the society, because certain type of goods and services which are required for the society but the people are not ready to pay, those type of commodities we call it as public goods. Because there is lack of profit in the public good, the market fails, because of which the government has to intervene into the market and try to correct that market failure. How do it corrects it? We will see it later. So under the market failure, we were discussing many points. Because of the non-existence of perfectly competitive market, or maybe monopoly, or maybe imperfect information, because of the public goods, because of the externality, because of etc etc. These many points, the market is failing in case of allocating function. One of the reason why market fails again is inequalities in distribution of income and wealth. What is inequalities of distribution of income and wealth? See, everybody is not equal with respect to their income as well as with respect to their wealth. Ambani just property ite, nam just property illa, nam just ite, nam just illa. Everybody's property, everybody's income is totally different. Because of which certain people can afford certain type of commodity, certain people cannot afford certain type of commodity. Maybe for example, if I am earning 25 lakhs rupees per annum, there are some other people who are earning only 100 rupees per day, daily labors. So whatever I can afford, those people cannot afford it. Because of this inequalities of income and wealth, there is the market which is unable to provide those goods and services for those people. Because 100 rupees ಅವರು earn ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ, again for their 3 times of food, again for education, again for the shelter, again there are so many other things also. Because of why market fails. Then As per Musgrave, see what are we discussing as per the Musgrave only. Musgrave only has suggested three branch taxonomy of an economy. One is allocative function, second one is distribution function, redistribution, third one is stabilization function. Under allocating function, where the market fails to allocate the resources efficiently to the required users, there are some market failure points. Again, the Musgrave is telling now, the state, the government is the instrument by which the needs and concerns of the citizens are fulfilled. That means, if the market is unable to provide goods and services for the poor people, then government has to come into the place and has to give the at a subsidized rate or at a free of cost. That is why we call it as state is the instrument for which the needs and concerns of the citizens are fulfilled. What is the instruments of fulfilling the citizen needs? That is the state. State means it is government. Again, therefore, public finance is connected with the economic mechanisms that should ideally lead to effective and optimal allocation of limited resources. In the absence of appropriate government intervention, market failure may occur and the resources are likely to be misallocated with too much of production of certain goods or too little production of certain type of other goods. For example, those type of goods which has too much of profit, private people will produce only those type of commodities, and they try to produce too little commodities such as free education, free health, public toilets, public parks. Why? Because markets are not meant for production of public goods. Markets are meant for production of only private goods. So if the government, in the absence of appropriate government intervention, then resources will be definitely misallocated for the profit making commodities rather than the welfare being commodities. Then, how does the government intervention correct this market failure? The resources allocation of a government policy focuses potentially for the government to improve the economic performance through its expenditure and tax policies. What is expenditure and what is tax policies? If the government want to give some goods, public goods for the society, then it will try to give it by way of expenditure side. They collect some revenue by way of taxes and penalties, etc. And that collected revenue will be spent for the purpose of giving free transportation, free ration, subsidized ration, free education, free health. That is, intervention of government will correct it by way of expenditure. Second one is by tax policies. What is tax policies? If the because of the externality also the market fails. Under externality there is something called as negative externality. What is negative externality? Which is causing the cost to the third party. So by way of levying higher amount of taxes, government will try to restrict the production and sale of those type of commodity, so that the market will not fail. That is one type of activity, correction of market failure.
Say that private funds for producing public goods, the directly come from private.
No, when I say public goods are produced by government, government needs some money. Money, where does the government get the money? By way of collection of taxes. Definitely, whosoever income is some X amount of money beyond that, they have to pay the tax. Collected tax has to be spent on these type of public goods and merit goods. So that is why so much of conflict is there between the government and the corporates. ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು, ನೀವು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ನನ್ನ ಕಡೆ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಸಾಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಅವನು ಪಾಡಿಗೆ ಅವ್ನು ದುಡ್ಕೊಂತೀನಿ, ನನ್ನ ಪಡೆಗೆ ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಕೊಂತೀನಿ. It is totally injustice. It is like the highest rate of tax in India, some X amount of rich person is around 47%. That means if you earn 100 rupees, sorry, if you have I will do it. 47, exactly I don't have to calculate it. 30 plus 37 percentage. It is 43%. 47. What do you mean by 43%? If I earn 100 rupees, I have to pay 43% of tax to the government. That means half of the year I am working for the government, not for my family. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಅರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ನಾನು ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟಕತ್ತೀನಿ. Or I can say half of the time I am working for somebody else. ನಾನು ದುಡ್ಡು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಸಾಕಾಗತ್ತೀನಿ ಈಗ. That is what the people's mindset is. Because of this reason only, people are trying to make black money. If they don't account it, then don't need to pay the tax. Then no tax, then they can keep it safe. Actually, government has to reduce the taxation. It is not for every individual. Highest tax rate is 30%, and on top of that, if your income is exceeding 5 crore rupees, then you have to pay 37% surcharge. Again, 4% health and education cess. So combined, all these things comes to 43%. In some developed countries, maybe Singapore, maybe Dubai, the income tax is only, I think, less than 5%. Less than 5%. So, coming back, again, I'll read this thing. The resource allocation role of government's policy focuses on the potential for the government to improve economic performance through its expenditure and tax policies. The allocative function in budgeting determines what is budgeting. Budget means what?
Estimation of
It is an expenditure.
Allocating the funds to different sectors.
Okay.
estimate
Estimating what?
incomes and expenses for the period.
For the period. Okay. Estimating the incomes and expenditure for the period.
For future.
Yeah, budget. Yeah, estimation is only, we can do estimation only for future. In the past, it is already incurred. Estimation means what? Thinking this could be our cost. That is what we are estimating it. When I say estimation, it is always for the future. Estimation of an income and expenditure of a country for one particular period, maybe next year, is called as budget. Just tax revenue ಬರ್ತೈತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು expenditure ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದನ್ನ estimation ಮಾಡೋದೇ budget ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. In every year, February 1 is the budget date. Nirmala Aunty will propose the budget on February 1 Parliament, Lok Sabha. So, for the purpose of allocative functions, using the budget determines what? First one is who and what will be taxed. If you are agriculture farmer, then we will not tax it. If you are producing some tobacco related products, we will tax the higher amount. If you are producing some innovative technology related software, hardware, that thing, then we will tax it related part. So who and what will be taxed? Do we need to tax it everything? No. Agriculture related is a backbone, we will not tax it. Milk, all those things. But milk which is in the packed condition, we will tax it. Again, paneer we will tax it. Anything which is in the loose. Sir, ಹಾಲು ಲೂಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಕೈಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಹಂಗಲ್ಲ, ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಪಾತ್ರೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹಾಕ್ಸ್ಕೊತಾರೆ. We will go to dairy. That is exempted. But packed things are taxable. Even rice, even wheat, everything is unpacked, is exempted. But if it is packed, it is taxable. And with respect to direct taxation also, individual, they are taxed in a different way. Company it is taxed under different way. Partnership is taxed under different way. Different persons, different tax rates. And how much and on what the government revenue will be spent. Do we need to spend on education, health, road, infrastructure, water? Yav will spend money. Budget will determine everything. The process by which total resources of an economy are divided among the various users. There is something called as Niti Aayog. Have you heard about it? Earlier, something called as planning commission, where they used to plan for 5 years. Now Niti Aayog will plan for only 1 year. They'll decide on what things, how we have to divide our resources. Then optimum mix of various social groups. How many parks should be there? How many hospitals should be there? How many education institutions should be there? Mix means how many number of things. Then level of involvement of the public sector in the national economy. That means what is public sector?
Socialistic government. Socialistic economy.
Which are run by
Allah.
government.
The entities which are run by government. Example, government is doing only for the welfare of people, but there are some other companies of government also. They will involve in the profit making business also. Example, IOCL, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, Bharat Petroleum Corporation, Hindustan Petroleum, everything is government companies only, but they are doing for commercial activity. How much commercial activity government has to do, how much welfare activity government has to do, that is they will decide. You are telling something.
Example.
Then the reallocation of society's resources from private use to the public use. Okay, that's it. How can the government correct this market failure? By way of directly producing those type of commodities. For example, if the private people are charging 100 rupees per kg of rice, then how can they correct it? By levying some taxes. Is the charge ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರಿ ನಾವು ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ರೇಟಿಗೆ ಸೆಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. If they are not agreeing for that, then government only directly can procure the agriculture rice and they can sell it in the market. That is what this thing. Government may directly produce an economic good. Example, they have given electricity, public transportation services, etc. Then government may use price mechanism things. What is price mechanism? Government can set this is the maximum price. We call it as MRP, maximum retail price. ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸೆಲ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. One is price ceiling, one is price floor. Ceiling is the higher limit, floor is the lower limit. Government can influence this market misallocation by way of legislation and force. What do you mean by legislation? By bringing some new acts. If you are having this type of commodity, compulsory 20% you will sell ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು. This legislation has actually come in banking sector. What is this banking sector? Okay, ಅದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಐತೆ. I want to give one more example. Banking sector ಒಳಗಡೆ ಐತೆ. Okay, banking sector main purpose ಏನೈತಿ? Accept the deposits, lend the loans. Whenever it is lending the loan, bank is always concerned with ಯಾರು repayment ಮಾಡೋ capacity ಐತಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗಷ್ಟೇ loan ಕೊಡ್ತೈತೆ. Only industrialist, businessmen, salary people, those people. But what about the agriculture risk? If the profit is there for the agriculture, they'll pay it. If there is no profit, then how can they repay it? Because of which RBI has introduced something called as PSLC. SLC alla, PSLC. Primary sector lending certificates. If it is lending 100 rupees, at least it has to give this much of certificate or loans for primary sector. Maybe farming, maybe primary sector ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಬರಲಿ, poultry, animal husbandry or dairy or agriculture, growing, anything. Minimum is ಕೊಡಲೇಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. The same way, it can do it by way of legislation and force. Initially, there was no legislation only. RBI said, ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಕೊಡ್ರಿ, ಅವರು ಬದುಕಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. No bank used to listen. Then they bought the act. Then by way of competition policies, merger policies, etc. What is competition policy? The market failure happens because of the monopoly also. That means monopoly will charge higher price or it will reduce the output. If there is a competition for the purpose of maximization of the price, he will definitely reduce the price and increase the output because you want to capture the market. Even ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆಯವರು ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ immediately. By those policies, the government will correct the market failure. Then government's regulatory activities such as licensing, control, minimum wages, directives, and all. Okay, that's okay. So standard of living, how it will ensure? By these things. Government sets a legal and administrative framework. That's okay. These are the remedies by which market failure is corrected in case of allocative function. Allocative function, market fails in so many reasons. Main things are monopoly, inequality in distribution of income and wealth, then public goods, presence of public goods, externality, mattine one more, incomplete information, as well as non-existence of perfectly competitive market. How it will correct it? By way of budgeting, by way of pricing policies, by way of taxation, expenditure, or competition policies, legislation and force, or directly procurement of goods. These things the government will do for the purpose of correcting the market failure. That means ಯಾವ ಜಾಗದೊಳಗಡೆ private people enter ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಆ ಜಾಗದೊಳಗಡೆ government enter ಆಗಿ ಇದು correct ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. It will be like balancing. That is what the allocative function. Aided school. So if it is serving the purpose, allocation is happening correctly. Aided schools ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನೈತಿ? They will charge some amount of fees for certain type of people. They will charge some higher amount of fees for some certain people. For example, 180 seats ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ 120 government seats ಇರ್ತೈತೆ, 60 private seats ಇರ್ತೈತೆ. So that comes under both. If it is serving the purpose, 120 government ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದ 120 ನೇ private ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ then government will intervene. Either it will regulate by way of you have to compulsorily take 120 students. If the college is not listening, then government only will start on government college. That is market failure. This is correction to the market failure. Please go through that allocation function once. Do ask if you have any doubts. We completed, I think, only 2 pages from the last 2.5 hours. See, first unit, mainly these 3 functions. Redistribution and stabilization will take slow, and state finance, all those things, we can take in a good pace. Time pass ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ರು ಹೋದ್ರಿ.
Sir, salary explain to me.
Same 2 to 3. And accounts ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ. When you want Sunday. Saturday will be the test at 2 p.m. At 2 p.m. again. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಓದ್ಲಿ ಟೈಮ್ ಸಿಗ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ನಾನು ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಇಟ್ಟಿರಲ್ಲ 2 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ. And one more reason is your main exam is on 2 o'clock only. 2 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಡೈಲಿ. CA ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಮೇನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇಮ್. CA
ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ 2 o'clock
ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. See, CMA exams are at 10 o'clock in the morning. For intermediate in 10 in the morning, for finals it is in the 2 in the afternoon. I don't know about CS, but CMA is like that, 10 to 1. Is intermediate, after 2 to 5 is finals. 3. 10 ಇಂದ 11 ಗೆ 1 ತಾಸು, 12 ಗೆ 1 ತಾಸು, 1 ಗೆ 1 ತಾಸು, 11, 12, 1. ನೀನು 10 ಕನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 4 hours ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. 10 ಕನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೆ ಅವಾಗ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವಾಗ 1 ತಾಸು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. There is one examination in finals for which you will get 4 hours. We call it as MDC, multidisciplinary case study. CA final. It is an open book exam. You can take any material to the exam. CA final ದಾಗ 6 ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ 6 ಲೈನ್ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಐತೆ. 2 ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಐತೆ 6 ಆಫ್ಲೈನ್ ಐತೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ 8 ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸೇರಿದ್ರೆ 1 ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Mix of every subject. Multidisciplinary means what? Multi stream, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಗಳಿಂದಲೂ ಬಂದಿರಬೇಕು. ಮೊದಲೇ ನಮಗೆ 6 ಆಪ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು. I can take economic law, I can take GFRS, I can take some banking regulation thing. ಈಗೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ತೆಗೆದು ಒಂದೇ ಪೇಪರ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. MDC, multidisciplinary case study.
ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗೋದ
ಟೀಚರ್ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡೋದು. You can take any material, not ICA, any material you can take. ಎಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಂಡು you have options. ನೀನ್ ಬುಕ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗೋದು ಇಷ್ಟೇ, ಬುಕ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಫಿಸಿಕಲ್ ಮಟೀರಿಯಲ್. ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಲಾರಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ನೀವು ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಕೇಳಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದ್ಯಾ The second function is, anyway you are wasting time, why I should waste mine? Redistribution function, where wherever the market fails to distribute the income, the government will intervene and try to redistribute the type of income. Sir, how does the government will redistribute the income? That is by two ways. One is by income method, second one is by expenditure method. What is income method? We call it as taxation policy, tax revenues. One, the income collection prakara redistribution kadime, sorry, inequality kadime ಮಾಡ್ತೈತಿ. Second one is whatever the amount collected by way of tax, by spending that amount it will try to reduce the gap between richer and poor. Sir, for example, somebody has some 1 lakh rupees, somebody has nothing. There is a gap of 1 lakh rupees. On the revenue side, it will try to reduce by collecting some amount of tax. It will say, for example, pay us 30% tax. 30,000 tax bardhaithe. The gap has reduced by 30,000 rupees. Second way of reduction of the gap, that inequality, is by distributing that 30,000 to the poor people, so that again the gap will come down by another 30,000. Two ways where the government will try to redistribute the income. One is taxation policy, second one is expenditure policy. You can see there. When it is left to the market, market means private people, the distribution of income and wealth among the individuals in the society are likely to be skewed. What do you mean by skewed? ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೇವೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ, they will take it. Richer will become the richer, poor will become the poor. Therefore, the government has to intervene to ensure that more socially optimal and egalitarian distribution, equally ಆಗಷ್ಟು distribution ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. How they will do it? Mainly, it is related to the basic question, for whom, ಯಾರಿಗಾಗಿ, ಈ ಜೀವನ ಯಾರಿಗಾಗಿ? Should an economy produce goods and services? For whom We have to produce goods and services. Government can redistribute income and wealth either through the expenditure side or through the revenue side. You should remember, government can use two methods. One is expenditure method, expenditure side method. Second one is revenue method. Expansion Allah.
Sorry, sir.
Expenditure and revenue of the budget. On the expenditure side, government may provide free or subsidized education, healthcare, house, food, etc., and basic goods, etc., to the deserving people. See, and theoretical, everybody we can say it can giving X and Y, but practically everything is vote bank. Who is going for who is deserving people? Nothing. No offensive, but I am asking. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಾಗ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಲೇಡೀಸ್ಗೆ ವುಮೆನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಬಸ್ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಕೊಡಕ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. But government has given free.
Okay.
So that is what I am trying to tell. It is purely with respect to the voting elections part. But economist election break angala. They have to write food, shelter, water, needy people, etc. On the revenue side, redistribution is done through the concept of progressive taxation. This is an important thing. Redistribution is done by way of dash. It is progressive taxation. Sir, what is progressive taxation? Have you heard about this word? You can just tell them, right?
There is the income tax.
Progressive taxation, there are two types of taxation. One is regressive, one is progressive. What is regressive taxation? It doesn't take into the account of ability to bear the concept. Sorry, what do you mean by ability to bear the concept? Whether you are rich, whether you are poor, it doesn't matter. You have to pay this amount of tax. For example, GST is a regressive taxation. What is GST? There is a pen. Consider this is 1,000 rupees, for which 18% GST is there. If I buy this pen, how much is the GST? 180 rupees. If you buy this pen, how much is the tax? 18%, that is 180. If some Narayan Murthy buys this pen, same 180 rupees is the tax. If some Narendra Modi buys this pen, but the ability to pay the concept, ನನಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ability ಐತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಮೂರ್ತಿ ನಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ. That is why regressive taxation. It is not taking into the account of ability to bear. ನಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಐತೋ ಇಲ್ಲೋ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಷ್ಟು. Whether the richer, whether the poor, everybody has to pay the same amount of taxation. That is not progressive. That is regressive. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ same amount of burden ಆಗ್ತದೆ. It is more burden on the people. What is progressive? Income tax is a progressive taxation. What does income tax is? If your income is up to 5 lakh rupees, pay only 5% of tax. If your income is up to 10 lakh rupees, pay 20% tax. If your income is more than 10 lakh, then pay 30% tax. Higher the income, higher the tax, lesser the income, lesser the tax. Sir, my income is less than 3 lakh rupees, no tax only. Why? Because you don't have the ability to pay. Where it considers personal ability. If that considers progressive taxation, as and when the income increases, the tax also increases. Progressive taxation. What is regressive taxation? It does not take into the account of ability to pay the concept. I don't care about your income, I don't care about your social status, I don't care about your level of education level, nothing. You want this, you pay this amount of tax. I don't care about whatever it is. That is regressive taxation. Is that okay? So one of the way how it can correct the market failure is by way of progressive taxation. What is progressive taxation? Collect it from the people who has more income, give it to the people who are lesser income. The distribution function also relates to the manner in which, that's okay, not important. The distribution function aims at, see what is important for MCQ is only this thing. And this thing, expenditure and revenue side. The distribution function of the government aims at distribution of income to achieve the equitable distribution of social output among households, ensuring the increased. Okay, I think there is some misprint here. Redistribution of income to achieve an equitable distribution of social output among households, ensuring the increased overall social welfare. I think this point should not be there. Redistribution ಯಾವುದು ಸಂಬಂಧ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೀವಿ for the purpose of equitable distribution. What do you mean by equitable distribution? We are trying to make everybody equal. Rich are richer, poor poor is so kadime ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರಕತ್ತೀವಿ. That is what equitable distribution. Second one is for the purpose of advancing the well-being of those members of the society who suffers from deprivations of the different types. What is deprivations of the different types? It is not only the physical disability. There are so many people who cannot work because they are physically disabled, specially able. Maybe ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಕೈ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕಾಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಕಣ್ಣಿಲ್ಲ. Or there are some people who are old age. Or there are so many deprivations in the society. By way of this redistribution, for example, giving some 3,000 rupees pension for old age people, we will try to make that gap equal. Then providing equality of income, wealth, and opportunities. Then providing security for people who have hardships and ensuring that everyone enjoys a minimum standard of living. It is like, sir, just because I don't earn, I need something to eat. So ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ನಾವು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. 3 ಹೊತ್ತು ಊಟ ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ, ಫ್ರೀ ರೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫ್ರೀ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫ್ರೀ ಬೇಳೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫ್ರೀ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫ್ರೀ ಉಪ್ಪು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಲೈಫ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. How do we do it? By way of expenditure side. Few examples are given here. One is progressive taxation. And whatever the amount we get proceeds from the progressive taxation will be used for the purpose of benefit of BPL households below poverty line. Then by giving employment reservations as well as preferences for the separate segments. For example, we do it now in government sector ಒಳಗಡೆ ಕಲ ಜನರಲ್ ಗೆ ಏನು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, OBC ಇಷ್ಟ ಇದೆ, SC ST, this type of reservation, minimum reservations, employment reservations, and preferences for certain segments of the population. Then unemployment benefits. ಈ ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ಹುಡುಗರು ಕೊಡಕತ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, every degree student will get 3,000 rupees of unemployment dole. Degree ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. And that unemployment benefits are called as transfer payments. Why? We discussed in chapter number 6. It is not counted for national income because it is not a value-added activity. Then below poverty line iddandre, we will give some monetary aid and aid in kind. What is aid? Aid means sahaya. We discussed an international capital movement. Then regulation of manufacture and sale of certain products to ensure that health and well-being of certain consumers. It is like cigarettes should not be sold for people who are less than 18 years of age. Our cigarettes should not be sold around 100 meters, 100 yards of the school, mainly school, college alla. So by doing some regulations of manufacture as well as sale of certain products, they are ensuring the well-being of the consumers. Are special schemes for backward regions and for vulnerable sections of the population. For example, there is one act called Income Tax Act ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. For Sikkim people, for Sikkimis, there is no income tax only. Irrespective of the income they earn, if they are born in Sikkim before certain age, for example 1999 or 2000 ಹಿಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಯಾವಾಗಾದ್ರೂ born ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ, whether they are men, whether they are women, it doesn't matter, any amount of income earned, it is totally exempt for them. That is not given by special schemes for some backward regions, etc. And there are some, this is actually asked for MCQ. There is an argument regarding this redistribution function. There would be a conflict between efficiency and equity. What is equity? We want everybody to be equal. We want to reduce this gap between richer and poor. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು? By collecting the amount by way of taxes and giving it to the poor people. If I keep on increasing the taxes to reduce the gap between the richer and poor, it will affect the efficiency. Why? Those rich people will think, why should I earn for somebody else's life? Then ನಾ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಲಿ, ನಂಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡ್ತೇನೆ ನಾನು. That is why there is always conflict between efficiency and equity. If you want to achieve the equity, efficiency will be affected. If you want to achieve the efficiency, then you cannot reduce that gap. You say from tomorrow there is no taxation in India, you will understand how much people start earning, how much they start disclosing the income. So there is always a conflict between efficiency and equity. Both cannot go in hand in hand. If you want to achieve the equity, efficiency will be affected. Again, the vice versa case. This is what the MCQ point. It is asked for at least 5-6 times in the examination. Under redistribution function, the conflict lies between dash and dash, efficiency and equity. Very important. If something is important among these points, only that progressive taxation as well as this efficiency and equity conflict. And again, this is same. An optimal budgetary policy towards the distributional change should reconcile the conflicting goals between efficiency and equity by exercising an appropriate trade-off between them. Okay. ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಎಫಿಷಿಯನ್ಸಿ ಬೇಕು ಇಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಬೇಕು ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಇಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಮೇನ್ ದೆನ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಮೈಸ್ ಲಿಟಲ್ ಬಿಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಫಿಷಿಯನ್ಸಿ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಓಕೆ ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಒಂದು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ತಗೋರಿ ಟ್ರೇಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್ where this says under redistribution measures country should be accomplished with the minimal efficiency cost by carefully balancing equity and efficiency objectives. That is what redistribution function. Redistribution by way of two things. One is revenue side, collection of taxes. Second one is expenditure side. By way of giving freebies, food, shelter, education, hospital, etc. That can be done by progressive taxation and giving some freebies for all those things. Because of which there is always a conflict between efficiency and equity. The government has to trade off depending on their objective. If their objective is efficiency, trade off equity. If their objective is equity, trade off efficiency. This redistribution function as well as this allocating function are of the functions of microeconomics, not the macroeconomics. Now comes the macroeconomic one function, that is stabilization function. We will discuss this stabilization, then we will wind it up. I will not take further. It is one more page, I think, less than one page. Next page. More or less, one page only. Again, in the next page, it is summaries to sum it up. Central state banks we will discuss tomorrow. See, that is not theory. That is pure information. Income tax act ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಾ GST act ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಾ rate ಯಾರು decide ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಾ it is whatever happening in India, that is what we are discussing. Central government ಗೆ ಏನು power ಇದೆ, state government ಗೆ ಏನು power ಇದೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಇದೆ. In this pure theory I don't want to mix it. I want to take it in the fresh mind. Tomorrow ಒಂದು ನಾಳೆ ಯಾವಾಗ Saturday tomorrow still we have. You can see the stabilization function. Macroeconomic stability is said to exist when an economy's output matches with the production capacity. Example, demand and supply is equal here. Demand equal to supply. Economy's total spending matches with its total output. Labor resources are fully employed as well as inflation is low and stable. Now, ಮೊದಲೇ ಏನು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್, ಇನ್ಇಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ, ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್, ಅನ್ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಪವರ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಒಂದು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತರೋದೇ ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್. The theoretical rationale means reason for the stabilization function is, see, it is just a theoretical, practically work ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಮಾಡೋದು theoretical of the government is derived from the Keynesian. You heard about this name? Where? First chapter, sixth chapter, as well as sixth chapter, second unit. That is national income equilibrium, Keynesian. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು in this CA foundation? ಇದಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ there is one more place where Keynesian comes. We call it as next chapter, money market. Money market ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ Keynesian. Why people demand money? Keynesian ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. Why do you need money? ಅದನ್ನು Keynesian ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ. There are three types of theories. Three ಅಲ್ಲ, actually six theories, three main theories, three subsidiary theories. Okay, don't worry. People need money. Why? Keynesian said something in the next chapter. We will discuss in that chapter. The Keynesian proposition that market economy does not automatically generate full employment. Why it will not generate full employment? ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಡ್ ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. If it is not skilled, private people will not take it into the employment. And the price stability is also not maintained because of the monopoly. They want to increase the price and make more profit. Therefore, government should pursue deliberate stabilization policy. What do you mean by deliberate? Huh?
Intentionally.
It is a purposeful policies. It is like devaluation, purposeful reduction in the value of currency. The same way, purposeful doing these policies. See, the government and the country's central bank, that is here it is RBI, promote full employment and price stability through prudent physical policy and monetary policy. An examination question has come on this. The government and central bank will promote full employment and price stabilization using dash policies. Physical as well as monetary policy. Physical policy is used by government, monetary policy is used by central bank because that is related to the money. In the absence of intervention of the government, then there will be instability occurs in the market. That will lead to again recession, inflation, etc. Because of this inflation and recessions, there will be longer periods causing for enormous hardships to the people, especially of poorer sections of the society. We have discussed in allocation function also. The stabilization issue also becomes more complex due to contagion effect. What do you mean by contagion effect? Huh? Means spread. Contagion means spreading effect. Whereby the increased international interdependence and financial integration causes forces of instability to get easily transmitted from one country to other country. That is, it is like India is, as I already said, totally dependent for 70% of the raw materials on China. If China gets into recession, it is as good as India is also definitely will get into the recession. What is the recession? They are unable to produce, they are unable to sell. If they are unable to produce and sell, what about that 70% of the raw materials coming to India? That will also get stopped. If 70% raw material does not come to India, what about the employment? What about the production? What about the sales? The contagion effect says the hardships of one country will be easily get transmitted to the other country. Because of what? Because of increased international interdependence. ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಅವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತದೆ. That is what this point. These things you read it. So this is again an MCQ point. The stabilization function is one of the key functions of fiscal policy and aims at eliminating macroeconomic fluctuations. They'll ask, the stabilization function aims at eliminating dash. It is macroeconomic fluctuations, not micro, which are arising from suboptimal allocation of resources. What is suboptimal? 100 ಕೊಡೋ ಕಡೆ 100 ಕೊಡಕತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ 80 ಕೊಡಕತ್ತಾರ. That is what suboptimal. How much optimal is? ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಷ್ಟು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು optimal ಅಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ suboptimal. Then government stabilization intervention may be through the monetary policy as well as physical policy. Monetary policy works through the controlling the size of money supply and interest rate, etc. in the economy. And physical policy for stabilization will try to direct the actions of individuals and organization by means of its expenditure and taxation policy. Monetary policy mainly deals with money related part. Fiscal policy mainly deals with expenditure and taxation related policies. This is again an MCQ. It can come for 3-4 MCQs. 3-4 MCQ ಬರ್ಬೋದು ಇದರೊಳಗಡೆ. I'll read one line, then I'll explain it. During the recession, in order to ensure the income protection, the government increases its expenditure and cuts down the taxation or adopts a combination of both, so that aggregate demand is kept stable even boosted up with more money put into the hands of people. What is this? Tell me. See, if you understand this, you will understand this. This is also an MCQ point. Starting after the ಕೆಳಗಿಂದ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. First read those 3 lines starting. What is that? What is that Reliance telling during the recession part? Anybody? Yes, Ramesh.
During the recession, generally the supply of money will be less in the market.
Mhm.
That is the demand of the goods and very big was. So the government will reduce the taxes so the people can purchase the goods and services. So hence the market will be stable.
Partly right. Anybody? Aishwarya.
Sir, during recession, to make sure that income doesn't come down of the producers, so the government increases its expenditure and cut down the taxes so that their income doesn't go down again, and so it helps uh, both uh, both helps to stabilize the aggregate demand.
Okay.
Uh,
Any other answer? Sanjay. ನೀವು ಗೂಗಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇನೆ.
So at the time of recession, to ensure that producers will loss or consumers will loss and to maintain the demand in the market, they make sure producers will not pay any taxes or they won't collect any taxes and they increase their expenditure on the people so that they can buy the commodity which is produced.
Producers are government.
Government will spend on the buyers so that they will like to transfer payment or something so that they will buy the commodity which is produced by the producers.
Any other answer? We should tell voluntarily. ನಾನು ಕೇಳೋಂಗೆ ಹೆಸರಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇವರು ವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡ. ಇಫ್ ನೋ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟೆಲ್ ಇಟ್. ಅಟ್ ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಟ್ರೈ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. First you tell me what is recession. First you should understand recession to understand that line. Decrease in production, okay? Then see, recession is a phase.
Down of the economy. Falling down of the economy
Okay, falling down of the economy. Why it falls down and economy falls down?
because of deflation.
What is deflation?
Decrease in the price of the product.
Why it happens? No, if you know the answer, let him tell.
It happens because of less demand.
Yeah, 100% of circle complete ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತ. Recession is a phase where the country is unable to meet unable to produce goods and services to meet the demand. Our demand is not sufficient so that the supply can be fully consumed. Or there is a mismatch between demand and supply. Either the producers are not producing to the required level of demand, or people are not demanding to the required level of output. Because of that, either we have excess supply or we have excess demand but lack of supply. That is what we call it as recession. Country is falling down. Sir, why the demand is not there because of the supply? Because People might not have any money to purchase the goods and services, because of it supply is more compared to the demand. Why is demand is more, supply is less? Because producers are not motivated to produce at some X amount of price. A pricing of sale ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ they might incur into the losses. Because of that, country enters into a concept called recession. During the recession, that means country going down. Either people does not have the money in case of recession to purchase the goods and services, or producers also does not have so much of motivation to produce the goods and service. When there is no motivation, no goods and service. When there is no goods and service, no profit. When there is no profit, no taxation. Coming back to the recession, read it again. During the recession phase, in order to ensure income protection, the government increases its expenditure and cuts down its taxes. First, we will discuss what is increase in the expenditure. Because people does not have the money, but for the purpose of consumption, somebody has to make the expenditure. So government will increase the expenditure. Earlier it is spending 1 lakh crore rupees. Now it want to spend 1.2 lakh crore rupees because of the recession. And it will try to even cut down the taxes also. Earlier, when the economy was normal or in the inflation or upward, the taxation was 30%. Now because the recession is there, people does not have the money to pay the taxes. We want to reduce the taxation to 10%. So that earlier if somebody is earning 100 rupees, paying 30 rupees tax. Now the same 100 rupees earn ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು only 10 rupees ಅಷ್ಟೇ tax payment ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. 20 rupees is the extra savings, because of which people will consume 20 rupees extra goods and services. That is how they will try to reduce the taxation. Now listen, again I will come from the beginning. During the recession phase, in order to ensure the income protection, the government increases its expenditure and cut down its taxes, or both. Think from government's angle. Government expenditure ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ? ಮೇನ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಷನ್. ಈಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೈತಿ? Taxes to cut down ಮಾಡೈತಿ. That means income coming to the government is also less now. But to bring out the country from the recession, it has to spend more money. ಮೊದಲು 100 rupees ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು, 100 rupees spend ಮಾಡ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಈಗ 100 rupees ಜಾಗದಾಗ 70 rupees ಬರಾಕತೈತೆ, but spend 130 ಆಗತೈತೆ, because it want to increase the expenditure and cut down the taxes. Sir, what about the gap of that 60 rupees? 70 ಬರಾಕತೈತೆ, 130 spend ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೇವೆ. ಇನ್ನು 60 rupees ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತರಕತೈತೆ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್? They borrow it from somewhere else. Borrowings. ನಾವೇನ್ ಸಾಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದೊಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಸಾಲ ಮಾಡ್ತೈತೆ. That means, can I say, during the recession phase, government's expenditure is more than government's income? Or that situation where the government's expenditure is more than income, we call it as what? Deficit budget. What is deficit? ನಾನು ಬರೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಕತ್ತೀನಿ ನಾ. That is what deficit budget. That means I am planning to spend more than collection. That is what budget. If my budget is in deficit, when the budget will be deficit, I am spending more than my income. When it will be in surplus, collect 100, spend 80. When it is balanced, 100 equal to 100. There are three types of budget: balanced budget, surplus budget, and deficit budget. Balanced budget is where income is equal to expenditure. Deficit is expenditure is more than income. Surplus is income is more than expenditure. Other next unit ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ, next unit and that unit. What I wanted to tell is, during the recession phase, government expenditure is more than income. Then in this phase, the government's budget will be in the deficit phase. That is what I wanted to convey. During the recession, government's budget will be in deficit mode. Exam ದಾಗ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ. During the recession, what will be the status of government budget? It is a deficit budget. Or what will be the impact on expenditure and income? Higher expenditure and lesser income during the recession. To bring out the country, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಒಳಗೆ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಂದಿ ಕಡೆ ರೊಕ್ಕನ ಉಳಿಯಲ್ಲ. ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಷ್ಟೇ ಅವ್ರ ಕಡೆ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಉಳಿತೈತೆ, because of these things. The nature of budget, whether it is surplus or deficit, also has the important implications on a country's economic activity. When the country is in recession, the deficit budget is suggested. You should not have surplus budget. What is surplus budget? Collect more and spend less. If you do that, People collect more means what? More tax. Spend less means what? Less expenditure. More tax collect ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ public is left with lesser amount to spend. If you also spend less, then who is going to give you the goods and services? That is not the ideal situation in the recession phase. Recession phase ಒಳಗಡೆ ನೀನೇ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರೊಕ್ಕ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ನೀನು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡು, ಅವಾಗಷ್ಟೇ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತೈತೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ. While deficit budgets are expected to stimulate the economic activity, surplus budgets are tend to slow down the economic activity. Two MCQs can be found here. Deficit budgets will stimulate the economic activity. Stimulate means what? Increase the economic activity. Or the surplus budget will be slow down of the economic activity. What is slow down? ನಾನು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಂದಿ ಕಡೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂಡ್ ತಗೊಂಬಂದು ನಾನು ಮಂದಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. I am keeping it for myself because I feel they already have sufficient income. Why should I spend it? In the history of 77 years of India, we had only one surplus budget because they are still developing country. We want to spend more. Development ಆಗಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ spend ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು. That one time was, that is in some lakhs only. Our government's budget, recent 2025 budget was around 50 lakh crore rupees. 50 ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೋಟಿ ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಮಂಡನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು. So that is on the deficit side only. It is good to be deficit budget. If not, country will not get developed. If it is a developed country, what is developed country? Everybody's income is stagnant. It is they are earning sufficient. They are able to they have the ability to pay the tax. In that case, government should not intervene in this type of activity. Then get collect ಮಾಡ್ಕೊ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡು. ಅವ್ರ ಪಡೆಯೋರು ದುಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Economic activity will happen. But developing countries should always have deficit budget. There is some summary. You read and tell me you understood it or not. Whatever we discussed regarding this above part is given here. Mark it as important. MCQ can directly come from these 3 points also. Huh? ಅಂದ್ರೆ see, budget is given for every year. Every year February 1st is a budget. See, government ಯಾವಾಗ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಮೇದಾಗ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಫೆಬ್ರವರಿ 1 ಆಗಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ. That's over. When the new government comes, the new budget will be given. Next year our budget. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ಸೈತಲ್ಲ ಆ ತರ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು. In the year of election, there will be 2 budgets. One budget is called as interim budget. Second budget is called as annual budget. Understood those 3 points? Understood everybody? We will wind up now. We will begin in the central and state finance in the tomorrow's class. See, central and state finance is not such a related topic. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ತ್ರಾಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಕಲ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟು ತ್ರಾಸ ಇಲ್ಲ. It is simple. ಹೌದು.